Our next guest is a longtime place kicker in the NFL. He's now a member of the NFL on CBS, and he'll be handling the sideline duties for the Jets and the Eagles this weekend in the NFL. Jay Feely is our guest. Jay, good morning. How you doing?
Good morning. I didn't get quite the intro like you did. Your intro was unbelievable.
I know. The band actually strikes up every day at 10 a.m. Eastern time for me. How you doing, man?
I'm doing well. You?
I'm doing good. So let's talk about the Eagles here because they came into the season big expectations, and now we're wondering if injuries will derail their playoff aspirations. Do you think they'll be able to overcome this myriad of injuries they've dealt with in the first month?
You know, it's been the story of the NFL has been the injuries. Obviously, the quarterback position is what gets all the attention, and that's what everybody's talked about throughout the year. But so many teams have had so many injuries, and you know, trying to weather that storm. The Chargers team has been beat up all over, and you go down to Miami and the problems they've had. Obviously, they've gotten rid of a lot of players on their own accord and changing that entire roster, but they've had a ton of injuries as well. And you go around the NFL, and that's the story, and you have to find ways to overcome it. You have to develop depth if you're a general manager and understand that that's going to happen, and you can't have a position where if I have an injury or two, it crushes my team. And so you have to develop young players, bring in the right young players, and understand that we have to be able to withstand the injury bug because it comes. And then your training staff, I think that gets overlooked a lot of times, but there's varying levels of competence in training staff. Some are really good and some aren't. And some strength coaches know how to get players strong but don't know how to keep them healthy. And so there's differences there that I think then you see the measure of that on the field because when you don't have guys, you can't compete. And when you have guys that you have to plug in that you just signed or that you just brought in this week and you don't have depth, then you can't compete. And that's just the reality.
Carson Wentz has existed in a weird world where he looked like an MVP, then he goes down. Nick Foles leads them to a Super Bowl. He looks good again last year, maybe not as good. He goes down. Nick Foles leads them to a playoff win. This year, he finally had the job to himself, and it seems like he's really thrust himself back into the conversation of one of the best quarterbacks in football. What have you seen this year compared to previous years with Carson Wentz on film?
Well, I think Carson Wentz is growing, and he's one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL now. And people, I don't think, understand how well he's played if you haven't watched the Eagles this year, that he's played at a level commensurate with, you know, any of the quarterbacks that you look around and you say, hey, these are the great quarterbacks in the NFL right now. He is one of the great quarterbacks in the NFL right now. I think because he got injured, you know, and even in those years when he got injured, he was an MVP candidate before they go win the Super Bowl when he gets hurt. You know, he's probably going to win the MVP that year if he doesn't get hurt. You know, and so I think when you look at Carson Wentz, the injuries have kept him from becoming that top echelon quarterback when you talk about the best quarterbacks in the NFL. But when he's healthy, he's been one of the top quarterbacks, and he continues to get better. He's put this team on his shoulders this year because they've had so many injuries, especially offensively. And he's the one who's kept them in games, continue to help them win games, a huge win against Green Bay, and really got this season back on track for them. And, you know, I think he's just going to keep getting better because I think his head coach does an unbelievable job of being creative, of putting him in a position to succeed, of utilizing his strengths and really emphasizing those strengths, and you see it on the field on Sundays.
Jay Feely for the NFL on CBS. He's going to be on the sidelines for Eagles and Jets coming up this weekend, joins us here on CBS Sports Radio. If we look at the Jets side of things, the one thing that we thought was Adam Gase was going to bring some explosive plays to a previously pretty kind of middle-of-the-road Jets offense. That really hasn't happened. Would you say that there's more fixing that needs to be done with Gase's play calling, or do you think that that's basically because he hasn't had his starting quarterback in there this year?
Well, certainly not having Sam Darnold in there has been a big issue. You know, and then you go to your backup quarterback, and he gets hurt right away. You know, so you're down to your rookie third quarterback, and you know that's going to be hard on any coach, on any play caller. And you've lost a couple of weapons offensively. You know, when you lose a guy like Quincy Enunwa, that's tough. You know, and I think Adam Gase would probably say that he has to do a better job as well, and that he's got to do a better job play calling. When you have a new system that you're bringing into a team, when you go through quarterbacks like that, and it's a brand new system as well, that's hard for everybody because anytime you bring in a new offense, there's going to be struggles. There's going to be a time before you understand that offense, before you can go out there effectively and move the ball and do exactly what an offensive coach wants you to do. And then losing those quarterbacks just crushes you. But they got to be better, and I'm sure he would say that as well. They have to do a better job as coaches. They have to do a better job as players. They're the worst offense in the NFL right now, and they shouldn't be. You know, you go out and you sign a guy like Le'Veon Bell. You have this back there that can catch the ball, that can run the ball. So you should be able to stretch the field. You should be able to take advantage of the defenses trying to stack the box and take away Le'Veon Bell.
Let me ask you about what's happening in Minnesota, because it seems like Kirk Cousins is a great guy. Seems like he's a friendly guy. He wants to do well, good thinker of the game, and yet they can't move the football on offense. They can't seem to pass the football. I should say they can't throw it through the air. They can't run the football. And it seems like everybody's really frustrated in that organization, his wide receivers, his coaching staff, et cetera. How can Cousins make this thing work in Minnesota as the walls are closing in?
Well, you know, I think organizationally, Mike Zimmer has decided that we want to run the ball, that we want to be a run-first offense. We're going to run it more than anybody else in the NFL, you know, and then we're going to hit some shots and play action. The problem is that they just haven't hit those shots deep down the field. And Kirk Cousins admitted that this week. He said there was a couple that he could have hit to Adam Thielen. And, you know, I think it's good for quarterbacks to be honest and to be accountable. You know, I think when he says that, even though people like criticize him a lot for that and thought he should have shown a lot more strength, I think when you as a quarterback say, hey, I didn't do this and I didn't do that, because quarterbacks are so protected so often in organizations. Coaches don't even like to criticize them in front of the team a lot of times because they want that quarterback to be confident. They want that quarterback to know their coach has their back. So when you show accountability and you tell your guys like, hey, I missed you and I should have had you, I should have hit you on that play. I think that's good for everybody. I think you're right. Kirk Cousins is an awesome dude. You know, I've gotten to know him a number of times, did some things at the Super Bowl this year with him. And, you know, I think so highly of who he is as a person. And, you know, I think that helps in your locker room when you know you have a guy that you really like. You know, but they have to go out there and they have to make plays offensively, and they have to be able to hit the plays. They spent a lot of money to bring him in there to be the quarterback, not to just hand the ball off. You know, so he's got to go in there and he's got to execute and he's got to make plays.
So this is what's interesting, because I would have thought Mike Zimmer would have said the same thing. Hey, we appreciate our quarterback wanted to do well. We wanted to be honest, et cetera. And yet, when asked about that apology, Zimmer said, I'm not a fan of it. No, I'm not a fan of it. And why do you think, you've been in these locker rooms for so long, why do you think the head coach wouldn't have wanted his quarterback to say something like that?
Who knows? I think Zimmer kind of has a little Bill Belichick in him, in that he'd prefer them not to do any podcasts, not to do say anything of substance in any of their interviews, and you know, just answer the questions, get through it, and don't make any news. I think that's probably what he would like, you know, and because he was honest and he made news because of it, and then it becomes a story, and then Mike Zimmer gets asked about it. That's probably why he didn't like it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Jay Feely joining us this morning on the show. He's got the Jets and Eagles, and that's coming up at the NFL on CBS on Sunday. Catch all of the action this Sunday, starting with that other pregame show on CBS Sports Network at 8 a.m. Eastern Time, followed by the NFL Today on CBS at noon. Jay, good stuff today, man. Thanks so much. Enjoy the game coming up on Sunday.
My pleasure. Good to talk to you.
You too. Jay Feely, our guest this morning on the show.